the let's go live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. And it is, we might be like 30 seconds late or so. I'm not sure. YouTube is they're on it. They're like, hey, you are 1 second late. You're on it late and something. Hey, but I think it's being connected. It looks like we might be live on YouTube. We're waiting for the Rumbles. We're waiting for the Facebooks and the Twitter streams and all of the streams. And I think it's working, which means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about the inevitable. That's right, we've got a big story. Donald Trump is out there. A lot of rumors saying he's going to be announcing another run for president. Wow, I know. Shocking. I know many of you out there going, you're kidding, Rob. You're kidding. Where'd this come from? Or not. I mean, the media's out there. It's breaking news. Holy crap. Everything's going to come down to this. What's happening to America? Our democracy is at stake, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, the rest of us have been expecting it. It's going to be, evidently, the rumors are November 14th. And so we've got a lot of stories here because as we've been prognosticating on this channel, there's going to be a lot of consequences depending upon who goes first. Is it Trump announcing first or is the DOJ indicting first? We sort of, Trump or Garland. Who goes first? We don't know. But CNN has said that they're thinking about bringing in special counsel. And so we're going to listen to that. CNN had a report from Donald Trump that special counsel, special counsel might be appointed to investigate Donald Trump. We have KellyAnne Conway. I want to check back in with her because she said that Trump never stopped running. She's not even surprised by this. She's like, yeah, it's been the plan for a long time. And so we'll check back in with her. We have clips from Alina Habba. She was over in New York. A lot of activity in New York that we got to get caught up on. She came out of a hearing yesterday and she said, this judge is just a joke, no hope at all. And she was essentially right. Trump actually lost those oral arguments. It involved some sort of oversight over the Trump organization. But simultaneously, in a couple of other cases that we've sort of been paying attention to, Trump advisor Kash Patel was granted immunity, which means he may be compelled to testify against Donald Trump, or we don't really know what he's going to say. But there was a story about that. Trump's ally, a guy named Barrack, got acquitted, which was a little bit of a surprise. And I want to go through this because Trump posted a very interesting statement about that. He actually came out and said, yeah, this is how it should be. Finally, one of the good guys gets acquitted. And we've talked a lot about, overzealous prosecutors here going after every one of Trump's deputies like Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon and many others, just trying to basically take out Trump's team. This guy, Barrack, went out there, apparently took the stand and convinced the jurors that he was innocent because he, of course, is. So we'll talk about that. We've got a clip from Tishy James. We heard yesterday that Trump was suing her and she came out and, of course, she's doing the victim thing. I won't be intimidated by bullies like Trump. So she came out and said that. We'll listen to her. We've got a whopper. Holy moly. We have a whopper of a document to attend to today. The House GOP released a 1,000-page document that chronicles FBI and DOJ corruption. And it's some serious heft to this document. I mean, we like big documents that we can read through, some serious thickness to them. But this one's a little bit too big even for this channel. 1,050 is the total page total. 1,050 pages are in this document. We're not going to get to all of it, but there are some juicy bullet points that they've separated out for us. And we'll dive into that because it's everything that you want. It's corruption, Hunter Biden stuff. It's Mar-a-Lago stuff. It's all sorts of stuff. All right. So we're going to really dive into that. We've got several clips from some elected Republicans who say that when they get in charge, if they get in charge, hopefully they do, that there will be some repercussions for the Democrats and the DOJ and the FBI. We've got Jim Jordan, who came out with a statement about this. Chuck Grassley was in Iowa speaking alongside Donald Trump, and he came out and said that he's going to go after Hunter Biden as soon as the Senate flips over to the Republicans. And same thing with Ted Cruz. unprecedented raids from the FBI that cannot stand, and something must be done about it. So we're getting some activity from the Republicans. We'll see. We'll see. But we'll go through all of that. Really, really a juicy report that is going to be a lot of fun. Then in our last segment, a lot of conversation about this on our locals today. And this was a funny story. Apparently, NBC got new evidence, new information about Paul Pelosi, and a weird little nugget that we dug into when we read that FBI special agent's criminal complaint. He said that when Paul Pelosi opened the door, that Paul Pelosi walked back essentially towards the intruder, the invader, the insurrectionist, the poppy. And we all were sitting here scratching our heads saying, that's a little bit weird. If the cops are there and you're afraid of this invasion that just occurred, why are you going back inside? Why are you not like lunging into the arms of the cops? Like, he's right in there. Holy crap, this weirdo with the hammer just came in. And evidently that didn't happen. Paul Pelosi, according to NBC, opened the door, said, well, come on in. Everything's great here. And then NBC deleted it. And they said it was because of journalistic standards or something. Oh, yeah. Don't you love how they bring those journalistic standards in when they're very convenient? When they're inconvenient, it's like, well, you know, Donald Trump did collude with the Russians. You know, that can stand out there for like 37 years. But Pelosi and some little truth leaks out about some weirdness going on. Oh, journalistic standards. Somebody got to get the book, get the journalistic standards book so we can apply it to ourselves. Capitol Hill Police, there were cameras all over the place. You know, it's because it's a mansion. She is the Speaker of the House. They've got security armed out the wazoo. We had John Cardillo over on Twitter. He said, yeah, look, all the red circles, there's cameras all over the place. But the Capitol Hill Police weren't even watching. All right, according to the Washington Post, sounds about right. And Politico still says that they need more money. So you just go, all right, I guess they probably do need more money so that they can have more people not watching the cameras. All right, so we'll get into all of that, my friends, and more. And of course, if you want to be a part of the show, the best place to do that is over at our locals community, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've got an amazing crew over there, an amazing chat that's going on when we have these live streams. And shout outs to Andy Vientikis. Andy's in the house, Farmer's Daughter, Jason on Blast. Bonnie Specs in the house, along with Paul Mino, John McGarvey. Very lively crew here today. And we've got, of course, a bunch of lurkers over there. I'm not going to call you guys out right now. We'll save that for later. But watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place to be. And of course, I appreciate you joining and supporting our community and having some fun during the live streams in our chats. All right, so the mind map is bouncing all over the place today. All right, let's get it queued up so that we can jump right into it. Coming soon, America's most awaited announcement, Donald Trump, evidently on November 14th, will finally make it known that he is running again. A lot of rumors about this, and there are consequences to this, because as we've talked about on this channel, what happens with all of the litigation surrounding Donald Trump? He just got raided by the FBI. The J6ers just sent him a subpoena. The list goes on and on and on. So what does this mean? And we also have to ask ourselves, we have a little bit of a chicken or the egg problem here. If Trump announces first, then if an indictment comes, does the indictment look political? It looks sort of reactionary to Donald Trump. But if the indictment comes first, is that a benefit to the DOJ? Because then Donald Trump says that he's running on top of that, and does that make him look like maybe he's trying to only run to escape criminal charges? All sorts of questions that, of course, we will dive into. But first, we have to take a look at the announcement, which came out on, evidently it's going to be on November 14th, is when the announcement will be revealed. The story comes over from Axios. They've got the scoop. Jonathan Swan says, Trump's team eyes November 14th announcement, which is right around the corner. And of course, the timing is interesting because it's right after the midterms scheduled for next week. They report former President Trump's inner circle is discussing announcing the launch of a 2024 presidential campaign, with the official announcement followed by a multi-day series of political events, which sounds very fun. Trump and his top advisors have been signaling for weeks that a 2024 announcement is imminent, but those discussions have reached a point. Say allies are blocking off days now in their calendars for weeks after the midterms. Travel preparation is taking place. They're hearing that polls are pointing towards a good night for the Republicans, and the Republicans are likely to win in both houses. Here, they're saying Trump wants to take some credit for that. And there's been a debate about this because in recent weeks, just like we talked about, who goes first? Is Trump going to announce or is he going to get indicted? He was at a rally on Thursday. He said, well, we'll get to that clip in a minute. Officially, a Trump spokesman declined to comment. The discussions are still fluid. They could change any bit depending on what happens on Tuesday. So I guess if the Republicans get blown out on Tuesday, then this could be maybe a different situation. Maybe Trump says, oh, we'll hold off a little bit. Or, for example, if all of the Trumpy type candidates, and there are many out there, what happens if they all lose? Does Trump say, oh, I better reevaluate this situation? Of course, I'm not thinking that's going to happen. It doesn't look like that. In fact, it looks like the momentum is going to continue through Election Day, which is going to be a good sign for the Republicans, but they are leaving the door open in case something changes. The discussions are still fluid, especially if things go differently between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock. Trump, they say, so anything could happen or not. He's conflicted on the timing. Nothing is ever certain, but people who have been close to him for many years are lacing up for the next race. And so we're going to have to dive into that, right? There are a lot of consequences. Trump was at a rally, and we'll take a listen to what he had to say about all of this. But first, my friends, we have a very interesting new thing to share. We've got sponsors on the program, and I am so grateful to share our newest with you. I have to explain that, my friends, if you have an IRA, a 401k, or a savings account, you know as well as I do, things are very scary out there. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record of $30 trillion, and inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time before the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. So I invite you to talk to my friends over at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. It's very easy. You can see on the screen, go over to robertlikesgold.com and they'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open a qualifying account. Very, very simple. Go over to robertlikesgold.com and you can see right on the screen, that's my friends over at Goldco. And thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to everybody who is supporting our sponsors, which is a very big, nice addition to the show. All right, but Donald Trump was out at a rally, and he is hinting big time that an announcement is coming soon. Visiting Iowa, Trump is hitting the airwaves, letting America know that something big is coming soon, and it very well is likely going to be a second run for office. We're all excited about it. Many Americans have known this for a long time. People all over Twitter and in the media are melting down. What's going to happen? Democracy is now over. We're all going to die. Meanwhile, I think a large portion of the country are thrilled that the direction of the country may change, not only after the midterms take place, but further beyond that in 2024.
And now, in order to make our country successful and safe and glorious, I will very, very, very probably do it again, okay? Very, very, very probably. Very, very, very probably.
Very, very probable. All right, we'll listen to it one more time.
Glorious, make our country successful and safe and glorious. I will very, very, very probably do it again, okay? Very, very, very probably. Very, very, very probably.
So I love how he says at the end of that, okay, I'll probably very, very probably do it again. Okay, which means it's like, you know, take it easy, America. I'm going to do it already, which we've already all known. And in fact, remember, this has been part of the strategy that we think that Bannon and Navarro and Trump have been using to deal with a lot of this litigation, all of the consequences of the lawsuits and the sort of what I would deem to be unconstitutional investigations from the illegally constituted J6 committee and so on, they are on the precipice of being out of power. And if Trump wins the DOJ, right, everything can sort of change on a dime. And that's why I think that Steve Bannon is not all that concerned about going to prison for 60 days. He says, well, whatever, because the Republicans are going to be in charge soon enough. Trump's going to be in charge soon after that. So who cares? Whatever. And that's really been a new novel defense strategy that we have never seen before. I'm a practicing criminal defense lawyer. I've never had the opportunity to say, we're going to pause our representation, or one of our strategies in our litigation is going to be, we're just going to win Congress. We're just going to wait until the presidency wins our favor. Typically don't have that option. But in this case, Donald Trump and many of those individuals do. Now, a big consequence of this, if Donald Trump does in fact run, will be the DOJ has decisions to make. Are they going to prosecute him or not? Now, I have been of the opinion here, and I know many of you have here as well, that Donald Trump is, very likely going to get indicted. To me, it seems crazy that all of this stuff would be going on if they weren't going to reach that endpoint. Remember, they have essentially hitched their entire platform on being anti-Donald Trump, on being anti-J6. Biden speaks day after day about MAGA Republicans. Same with Karine Jean-Pierre. Same with basically the entire Democratic Party and a good swath of the Republican Party, so-called, if you want to include Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. But these people have nothing else if they don't indict him, in other words. If they take all of this to the finish line and they don't punch it through, and they just turn around and they bring out Merrick Garland or somebody, Christopher Wray from the FBI, if they drag him in front of America and they say, well, we've investigated Trump, but we don't think it's appropriate to charge him, just like we don't think it was appropriate to charge Hillary. We're going to follow precedent and all. Do you think the Democrats would stand for that? Not even for a minute, right? They would lose it. They would have, I don't know what they would do, but it would be not good. So the DOJ then, right, they kind of have no choice but to take this all the way to the end, because what else are they running on, honestly? Let's take a look now at what CNN is reporting, because they have an exclusive, they tell us. CNN says, exclusive, DOJ, the Department of Justice, is considering special counsel to prosecute Donald Trump if he decides to run in 2024. All of us know that he is. Rumors are November 14th will be the day that he announces it. But what does the DOJ do in response? If they indict him, suddenly it looks kind of political, because they're indicting their key opponent, Donald Trump, especially if the Biden administration decides that they're going to try to drag him across the finish line again. This story published November 4th, telling us from Washington, as Donald Trump inches closer to launching yet another run, Justice Department officials have discussed whether a Trump candidacy would create a need for a special counsel to oversee two sprawling federal investigations related to him. We've got the J6 Inquisition going on. We've got the Mar-a-Lago raid also going on. Now, what's very convenient about this is they sort of are acknowledging within the confines of the DOJ that they might have a conflict of interest if this goes forward. If Trump decides that he's going to run, maybe we'll have a conflict of interest. Maybe this will suddenly become problematic. You don't think it's problematic now? What's going to make it problematic? The fact that he just decides to run? The fact that he makes an announcement? Now it's official? So now we have this distinguishing line here. Okay, well, nobody agreed with you that distinguishing line was appropriate. Everybody has known that Trump has been in this area of contemplation about running again. And to pretend like he's not a political opponent until he is a political opponent, and to live in this fictional la-la land that the DOJ is currently living in, like there is no conflict of interest by prosecuting a former president who's very likely going to run again. It's just a fiction. They're lying to themselves. They're lying to us. They think that we're all stupid, and apparently half their party or most of their party just buys it because they say, Biden doesn't know anything about it. Merrick Garland, who works for Joe Biden, doesn't know anything about it, even though it's his attorney general. Very strange. So now they're going to consider a conflict of interest and appoint somebody. Neat. The Justice Department is also staffing up its investigations with experienced prosecutors, so it's ready for any decisions after the midterms, including the unprecedented move of indicting a former president. Why are they hiring all the prosecutors if they're not going to prosecute Trump? Top aides to Trump have been eyeing a third week of November as the ideal launch, two sources have said. In the weeks leading up to this, DOJ has observed a traditional quiet period, they say, of not making any overt moves. No sudden movements for Merrick Garland. Meanwhile, they're leaking repeatedly to the Washington Post and the New York Times. We've covered stories. I mean, over the last several weeks, it's weird. Was there stuff to talk about here on this channel with about Donald Trump? Yeah, there was a lot of it. We covered it, all of it. Where'd that come from? Not the court filings, from the leaky DOJ. But behind the scenes, investigators have remained busy using aggressive grand jury subpoenas and secret court battles that we can't see to compel testimony, one of whom we're going to talk about is Kash Patel, one of the individuals they are seeking testimony from. All of this related to the 2020 election and Palm Beach invasion. Federal investigators are planning for a burst of post-election activity in the Trump investigations. That includes the prospects of indictments of Trump's associates that could be more complicated if Trump announces. One defense attorney working on these matters said they can crank up charges on almost anybody if they wanted to, obviously, right? It's the federal government. Your state, local government, by the way. If you drive to work, if you're like, I'll never get stopped I never break the law. Their cops could cite you 35 ways from Sunday on your trip to the office. Said that he has no idea who's ultimately going to be charged. That's the scary thing. Trump and his associates also face legal exposure in Georgia and other places. Indicting an active candidate for the White House would surely spark a political firestorm. No kidding. And so now we see this little window. Okay, we've got the midterms, which are on November 8th. And we see that if Trump is eyeing an announcement just a short time after that, so Tuesday is the 8th, the 14th is going to be the Monday. So Trump's announcement would come on a Monday. So that means that the DOJ has basically a full 1, 2, 3 days to get an indictment in. After the midterms, they've got the 9th, the 10th, the 11th. And we're sort of seeing a first to the media situation too. What if they get the indictment in before Trump announces? What if Trump announces and then they get the indictment in? How does all of it play out? Yeah, either way, it's surely going to spark a firestorm, no doubt about it. And while no decision has been made about whether a special counsel, this would be an independent so-called third party who would actually conduct the investigation and the prosecution, DOJ officials have debated whether doing so could insulate the Justice Department from accusations that Joe Biden's administration is targeting his chief political rival. Duh, obviously. Special counsels are hardly immune from attack. We know John Durham has failed. We know Robert Mueller, according to the left, has failed. The Justice Department declined to comment, obviously. Now, they're bringing in, they say, a brain trust for high-level advice on this. They're going to do it, obviously, right? I mean, they're not going to get all the way here to the end zone and then not punch it in. Top justice officials have thought about bringing in this guy called David Rhodey. Extensive experience in other areas, lucrative partnerships. There's a team at the U.S. Attorney's Office handling the J6 stuff and the sedition cases. Wow. They're all joining the case. So Garland has a big decision, and he's going to have to decide. Several former prosecutors believe that it is a chargeable case, but Garland's going to have to make a decision. He avoided answering questions because he doesn't like to answer questions. He says, well, we're just going to speak through our filings, is all that Merrick Garland ever says. Then his leaky office turns right around and leaks everything right back over to the Washington Post and the media. So special counsel, would that insulate the Biden administration? It would be certainly more removed. It would be just like a John Durham or a Robert Mueller investigation. And then you got to ask yourself, well, how long do those investigations take? Like, are they just going to hand this over to special counsel and he's just going to file charges? Unlikely, right? That special counsel is going to want to do his due diligence or her due diligence and get to the bottom of this before they make a formal filing. Think about how long the Durham case took. Think about how long the Mueller investigation took. Years. So Trump announces now, and then they turn it over to a special counsel. The special counsel then goes through a several-year investigation. Maybe Donald Trump gets elected before the special counsel even finishes. And then Trump takes office, and he could be a president again and charged with crimes as the president from a 2-year-old investigation from a special counsel. And they could essentially dog his entire second term with a criminal investigation, just like they did the first time. These people, man, you can just see what they're doing. They're never going to let him go. All right. So now they're considering special counsel, and that would insulate them. It would be one step better, but it would be another big, long litany of litigation, and he'd have to deal with it. So absolutely a total joke. We have KellyAnne Conway, who is, of course, a major advisor for Donald Trump. Sounds like she still is an advisor for Trump and Pence. KellyAnne Conway is asked about Trump running again. Rumors are it's going to be very soon. But KellyAnne, when will it be? And what's he going to say? And tell us more about what you know, given the fact that you've worked with him very closely for so long.
Wise from National Journal.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Two things. Firstly, when will Trump announce his 2024 presidential bid? I'll start with that.
Is there a follow-up?
There will be a second question, but I thought I'd just start with
Well, he'd like to have done it already. And I give him credit for many things this year, because he's going to end up being a big winner from this election cycle. Try as everybody did to say you nominated the wrong people, you didn't get enough money, you're in the way, go away. Donald Trump in some ways never stopped campaigning from early 2015. First for himself, and in between for many, many different candidates. I mean, unlike Joe Biden, Trump was highly in demand in 2018 and did what he could to show up for many of these races, could only go for a couple of the House seats, but went around for a lot of the Senate seats. And we picked up seats in the Senate after the Kavanaugh hearings. Again, something totally misread, respectfully. We picked up seats in the United States Senate in 2018. Hard to do, lost, I think, 40 seats or so in the House. So he never stopped campaigning, including into his post-presidency years. And I would say it's hard for me to see that Joe Biden ever started really campaigning.
He didn't.
Did he ever start campaigning for himself in 2019, 2020, after COVID hit? And he certainly isn't welcome in most places and spaces now. So in many ways, don't miss why and how Trump is running for president again, if he would like, because he actually never stopped being part of this. So he would have liked, I give him credit for staying in the game this cycle, with very few exceptions, and I can't even think of any right this second. I can think of the individual candidates like Matt Dolan in Ohio, who lost, but I can't think of individual Republicans on the ballot who are not running mostly, if not almost completely, on the America First agenda.
Right. Think about all of them. Think about Herschel Walker. Think about Oz. Think about Blake Masters here. We have Carrie Lake. We've got J.D. Vance, did I already say him? They're all over the place, right? Many, many candidates. And if you take a look at all the headlines on many of the mainstream media outlets, you'll see 50% of candidates are election deniers, and 50% of Americans have somebody on the ballot who's going to wreck democracy, right? All of that stuff. But people want to sort of mitigate Trump. They want to say that he's irrelevant. Nobody cares about him. It's not his party anymore. Let's go back to the old Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham style, where we just give billions and billions of dollars to whomever wants it. And we do the same thing that the Democrats do, just a little bit differently with a little bit of a different label on them. Nobody wants to do that. And she's making a good point here that Trump has been consistently in it, and the candidates seem like they're poised to win.
And the Trump-Pence accomplishments. So his legacy continued. So that's one. I give him a ton of credit for not announcing this year, for not stepping in the way of the midterm candidates, which a lot of people around him who frankly need him for their next meal and their next gig and their next center of power were urging him and begging him and leaking to a lot of you that he would be announcing any moment. I'm glad that he
did. I have a great admiration for that little jab that she just slid in there. That was leaking to many of you. A lot of people were leaking a bunch of crap to a bunch of you people. didn't work out so well for you.
He didn't do that. That was certainly my advice from the beginning. You know, wait until after the midterms, if you do it all. Secondly, I like the fact that he came back to Washington at the end of July, a full year and a half since leaving on January 20th, 2021, and gave a policy speech. It took President Trump an hour and a minute, roughly, to get to the 2020 election in that policy speech at AFPI, which you all covered. And then he went on to CPAC and gave mostly a policy speech. So when he does that, when people hear the binary choice and they're reminded of why his words, "You miss me, don't you?" They'll say, you know what? I'm going to push aside whatever I don't like, and I'm going to vote my pocketbook, my personal liberty, my fear of crime, my frustration with no baby formula on the shelves, rising costs of gas and groceries, which is a 6-month-old conversation. The conversation now is utilities, insurance, rent, mortgage, tuition, student loan payment. So I think you can expect him to announce soon. Obviously, there's a family wedding coming up on his property, and election day is late this year. But as he would say, wait and see.
Okay, so very, very soon. It sounds like just a couple days away, maybe a week or two. She being a little bit coy about this, but it sounds like she knows that it's going to happen. She says he's been campaigning for this entire time, right? He's never stopped, in other words. So just hang out, wait and see. It's going to be coming. KellyAnne Conway has the inside scoop, and she has been proven to be pretty reliable. So that will be very fun to observe. Now, of course, as Trump announces, we've got to ask ourselves what happens with all of this litigation, because many prosecutors are trying to make their names. They're trying to get elected. They're trying to build their careers on the back of Donald Trump. One of the places where this is happening is in New York. Trump lawyer Alina Habba has some words for the press about a judge. Says, I've been in this judge's courtroom representing Donald Trump and the Trump organization for a long time. It's not even worth making arguments. This courtroom and this judge are so biased against the former president. What's the point?
I think it's as expected. I've been doing this dance with Judge Gorin and his clerk, who appears to be a judge as well, for over a year. The Trump organization is under scrutiny for something they didn't do. There is absolutely nothing wrong with valuing your properties with Deutsche Bank and going back and forth about the values of those properties. It was done appropriately. We stand by that. But like I said, we're in a courtroom that I've been in before for many years, and as I told my colleagues, I don't even see the point in speaking, because we're going to lose no matter what. Just what it is. And by the way, it's ironic that there's a rally at 5 o'clock with Tishy James.
So I don't know if you caught that very end statement from her. She said, by the way, it's very convenient that there's a rally for Letitia James tonight at 5 o'clock. And I don't know what happened in there, but something about needing to be somewhere probably at 5 o'clock was said in the courtroom. But you can see Alina Habba. I know this face well. I know what it feels like to be in a courtroom and a judge right there. That face, just like, what the F? You know, there's nothing you can even say or do in a court of law. Sometimes the judge just has it out for you, and it's the end of it, right? You can go into the judge just listens to you, smirks at you, issues a ruling, you're on your way. And so we know that Trump has some difficult jurisdictions that he's in. Alina Habba is a fighter. She goes and handles all of these situations, even when it feels like it's a losing battle. She still goes in there and, of course, speaks to the media about the reality of the situation. And I do believe it is the reality of the situation. We have talked about so many different Trump cases on here. You can see the smattering of sort of judicial dripping of disdain. Some of them have a lot more drizzle, others don't. But I would imagine that what Alina Habba is talking about is very reflective of the reality that took place in that courtroom. We also have another interesting development in Trump world. It's about immunity. Kash Patel, Donald Trump's advisor, may be testifying against him or for him. We don't really know the details, but we are seeing reports that he has been granted immunity for testifying in the Mar-a-Lago papers case. Kash Patel is going to get limited protection, which means if he speaks or when he speaks, it can't be held against him. They're going to ask him about the declassification issues. Federal prosecutors examining the, quote, unauthorized retention, allegedly, of highly sensitive government documents at Mar-a-Lago. They're going to get testimony from top advisor Kash Patel. They granted him immunity, limited immunity, according to two people familiar with the matter. Now, this is a powerful tool. It forces witnesses to testify if they can't be prosecuted. Takes effect on November 2nd and signals the importance of his testimony. They say that their interest in Patel centers on claims that the documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago were declassified. A big argument we've talked a lot about here. Donald Trump has said that. I know Kash Patel has said that. There's been a lot of statements, even from his lawyers, saying that Donald Trump has declassified these materials. A lot of questions about how. Did he have to sign a document? Well, they say he didn't formally go through the registrar, the person who signs out, the librarian who makes sure that your library checkout slip is properly filled out. Trump didn't do that. Therefore, he's, a criminal, which is kind of shocking given the fact that he's the president. And if the president has to fill out stupid forms for the bureaucrat, isn't the bureaucrat a little bit more powerful than the president? I think so. So in this case, how the documents came to end up on the property, they say Kash Patel might know about it. How Trump's aides and lawyers responded, Kash Patel may have info. The status of the documents is important because the prosecutors can prove that those seized by the FBI were not declassified. It could strengthen a potential obstruction case, which is hilarious because they told us that the declassification issue was a red herring entirely. Remember, they said, oh, don't worry about that. The classification is not important because it's only about possession. Those are government property documents. It doesn't matter whether or not they're declassified or not. It was a possession argument, not a status argument. They said Trump can't declassify things. Even if he did, they said it doesn't matter because it is theirs. So now they're saying that the declassification issue is relevant back to the obstruction charge, right? And he had several charges there. The obstruction charge could go a number of different ways. If you remember, one of the big angles on that was the custodian of records apparently was Christina Bobb, another Trump lawyer, evidently signed, said, I gave all the documents back. Turns out all the documents were not back. And so they're trying to find intent. They're trying to connect this to Trump to say he intentionally obstructed in some way, shape, or form. Advisors like Patel have claimed repeatedly since the search that they've been declassified, but they say they've got no evidence about this. Patel's close advisor maintains a personal relationship with the Trump, also appointed as one of the representatives to the National Archives, the head librarian. And the Justice Department is expected to ask him about the circumstances behind the documents being at Mar-a-Lago. In a prior inquiry, he asserted his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination, but now he will not be able to do that. So Chief Justice Judge Beryl Howell agreed that Patel could believe that he had a reason to assert the Fifth, and they applied for the order granting him immunity from protection. And so now he can testify. Prosecutors grant immunity as a matter of last resort, especially in high-profile cases, since it makes prosecuting them much more difficult, requires approval at the highest levels of the department. So it sort of begs the question, are they panicking a little bit? Are they running out of angles? Why do they need to grant him immunity? I thought this was an open and shut case, like clear as day. All they've got to do is just go in. I mean, they got the boxes. They came out with 15 boxes in there. So what else do they need? Right? So Kash Patel may be granted immunity, and if he is or has been granted immunity, and so now he is free to testify. And if he doesn't testify, right, if they bring him in and he says, well, I'm not testifying, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment, then they could say, well, we're holding you in contempt, just like we saw in other cases, like the Engelbrecht case, the True the Vote case, where they said, we're not giving you our advisors or our sources, and boom, judge said, no problem, you're going into custody. So same thing could happen to Kash Patel, whether it will or not, or what he'll have to say is a different story. But this is an interesting development because, as we just read, it may mean that they're running out of options. They're running out of angles. They're sort of hitting a bunch of dead ends, and they're not happy about it. Another Trump ally was facing a prosecution, and he emerged victoriously. We see this gentleman, Tom Barrack, was acquitted, and Trump had a big congratulatory statement after the verdict. Let's take a look at what he said. This is the statement by Donald Trump after Tom Barrack got acquitted. The statement is by the 45th president of the United States, Donald Trump. He says, "Great news for our country, our freedom, and our democracy. In that businessman, Tom Barrack, who should have never been tried or charged, was just acquitted of all charges. Likewise, his associate, Matthew Grimes, was also acquitted of all charges." He says, "My great respect goes out to the jurors for their courage and understanding in coming to an absolutely correct decision. This could be the beginning of our breakaway from communism and other very deep and dark places where the United States should never be. Cuba, Venezuela, and even the Soviet Union were looking more and more like that could be us in the not too distant future." He says that the upcoming election is very big, but these acquittals of two innocent men greatly set the radical left back. And now they should immediately release great patriots like Catherine Engelbrecht and Greg Phillips from prison in Houston, where they're being held for redacted. All that's redacted for YouTube, unfortunately. But you know that story. He says they should be praised for doing an incredible job. They did. They should not be ridiculed by the radical left, with their leaders thrown into jail. Says start treating also the J6 protesters fairly. Let them all go now. Whether it's a raid on Mar-a-Lago with the violation of constitutional rights under the Fourth Amendment based on a fake document investigation where every other president had no liability, or the other phony hoaxes and scams that have been going on for years, like impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, Russia, 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 Ukraine, 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 the Mueller investigation, where they found no collusion or more. We can't let it happen. Trump says, "Congratulations on a great victory for our nation." That's the statement from Donald Trump. And he's congratulating Tom Barrack on a not guilty verdict. And that story from Bloomberg details a little bit more for us. This is the gentleman. The verdict came after a 6-week trial. It's a rebuke to federal prosecutors. He's a Colony Capital founder. He took the stand for days in his own defense. Okay, this is a guy, right, who was just acquitted after 6 weeks of hell. He had to take the stand. He was prosecuted by corrupt DOJ prosecutors, in my opinion, who have a vendetta against Donald Trump. And the only thing they want to do is take him out. So they go after all of his deputies. They've gone after Alan Weisselberg for grandkid payments. The list goes on and on. They're trying to take out everybody who even knows him. It's disgusting. Tom Barrack was cleared of charges. He tried to influence the campaign like an agent of the United Arab Emirates. 75 years old, not guilty on all 9 counts against him. And my friends, this doesn't happen very often, okay? Most people who are charged with crimes get convicted. That's why we, lose our minds when Michael Sussman, who is obviously guilty, gets acquitted, okay? But most people who are charged by prosecutors, they get convictions on them. It's just how it works. The fact that this guy didn't get convicted, it must have meant this case was the worst ever. Federal prosecutors, 9 counts. They couldn't get 1 to stick. What a joke. But they charged him because that's just what they do. They charged him failing to register, obstructing justice, lying to federal agents. Matthew Grimes also acquitted on 2 counts, foreign agent counts, another 6-week trial. You know what that cost them? Okay, these guys may have resources to defend themselves, but many other people don't, like the J6ers. And you bring the strong arm of the federal government and $1 billion agency of U.S. prosecutors down upon the backs of innocent people, it can break them. These guys were not broken. In fact, they're victorious. But it begs the question, why are these prosecutors prosecuting these garbage cases? The verdict came barely 2 days of deliberations after they occurred, calling this a stinging rebuke to federal prosecutors. They claimed that he advanced $374 million of investigations. Judge read the verdict. He dropped his head down. He began to weep. So did his children and his wife. One male juror pumped his fist in the air And they were very supportive of him. He says, amazing. I'm humbled. The system is amazing. People are amazing. I have no hostility. I'm just proud to be an American. He had a sunny demeanor. He told the truth. He recalled his character, and it all worked out his way. But my goodness, many times it does not. So a big victory for Tom Barrack, Donald Trump acknowledging it, recognizing this is a good day, because oftentimes that doesn't happen. And this becomes a big problem. You know, if they start taking out all of his friends and family and all of his allies, right? It's a big, big problem. It's lawfare. And fortunately, there are still some jurors in America who can listen to the facts. This guy still had to spend, you know, who knows what he had to spend. Not to mention 6 weeks of your life in a trial to walk out and go, I'm acquitted now. He's not getting that time back. He's not getting that money back. Those prosecutors aren't going to reimburse him or send him an apology letter. Ridiculous. All right. So we also have a clip from Tishy to wrap up this segment because, you know, it's Tishy. Donald Trump announced a lawsuit against New York Attorney General Tishy the Tishter James, and he said that he is suing her for harassment because she has been, well, harassing him. She took to the podium and said she's not going to stand for bullies, just like she has been ranting about for years. Her entire campaign has been against Donald Trump. This gives her another opportunity to do it again.
I will not allow anyone, including the former president of the United States, to bully me. No. Like all of you, I will not bow, I will not break, and I will not be intimidated by anyone.
Please clap. Please clap.
Because I know that all of you have my back.
Her entire life is running against Donald Trump, doesn't want to be attacked by a bully, even though Donald Trump never used the strong arm of the government against her, never invaded her residence. She's doing that and similar things to Donald Trump. She is using the strong arm of the government to investigate his business, investigate his family, investigate him personally, and bring criminal charges against his individual deputies. It's disgusting behavior. She is commandeering an entire office for her own personal gain at a political expense of her constituents. It's a sad deal. Letitia James, I believe, is on the ballot this year. So if you're out there in New York, it might be in your interest to vote for the other candidate, whoever that happens to be. But that, my friends, is the segment on Donald Trump announcing very soon things are about to get extra spicy, and we're waiting to see when that announcement comes. November 14th is when it appears to be. Of course, we will be here covering it, and I hope you join us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking the video wherever it is you're watching this, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, and so we've got some serious, a little bit of heavy lifting to do here because we have about a 1,000-page document that we have to attend to. Now, it's going to be, we're not going to get to all 1,000 pages, all right? We can just go ahead and say that. But we do have to get into it because it is some of the juiciest stuff that we've seen on the FBI, DOJ corruption in a long time. The Republicans release a 1,000-page document detailing the corruption at the FBI and the DOJ. We're going to go through it, not all 1,000 pages, but we will hit the highlights. Merrick Garland, you see here, he is the Attorney General of the United States. He's going to have a lot of questions to answer as soon as the Republicans take over in the House and the Senate, starting with Jim Jordan. He's got a lot of questions for the FBI and the DOJ, and he comes to announce the latest document from the House GOP. Jim Jordan unveils to America 1,000 pages of corruption and disgusting behavior from what Americans believe to be our honest and truthful agencies called the DOJ and the FBI. Unfortunately, as this document reveals, they're not.
Yeah, look, our job is to get the facts to the American people. We've released this report today, which just shows how bad things have gotten at the FBI and the DOJ. It's all driven by politics now over there, and look, we live in the greatest country ever, but America's not America if you have a Justice Department that treats people differently under the law. It's supposed to be equal treatment under the law That's not happening. And we know it's not happening because 14 brave FBI agents came to us as whistleblowers and told us what exactly is going on here. Started with the school board issue, but it's also this juice in the numbers on domestic violent extremism cases. And then, of course, just the politics that are rampant. They're actually purging now. We've had a whistleblower tell us they're getting rid of conservative Republican-type FBI agents. So that's the problem. Our job is to get the facts to the people, and then let's hope at some point we have a Justice Department that actually holds people accountable for the wrongdoing.
And the Great Purge continues. They're trying to do this in the military. They try to do this in maybe your local business or your big business. They're trying to do this now, evidently, in the FBI. Jim Jordan telling us they're trying to expunge, excommunicate, throw out conservative agents in the FBI. Now, there's a lot more where that comes from. We're going to go through the 1,000-page document, of course, because it is just never ending, the amount of corruption and disgusting behavior. But first, my friends, we have to talk about a food shortage. We know that this could be coming. Okay, we've seen a lot of these stories, even in the U.S. They wrote about this as recently as July. Drought, inflation, policies, they're all pushing America's food supply to its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. You can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food and a food kit. Now, this is not your ordinary food. We're talking about good for 20 years, 25 years, excuse me, super survival food. Hand-packed right in family-owned facilities here in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water resistant, and they're stackable easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. All you have to do, add water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use code ROBERT to get 10% off your first purchase of anything in the store. And there is some good stuff, my friends, including a 3-month survival food kit. You get their famous guarantee for over a year after you order. Plus, you get free shipping on anything that's over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. And so just go over to 4patriots.com and use code Robert to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com. Use code Robert and start building your own stockpile today. Now, my friends, we have to take a look at the actual report from the FBI. The House GOP issued 1,000+ pages. You see here in the top left, 1,050 pages make up this document. It's entitled FBI Whistleblowers, What Their Disclosures Indicate About the Politicization of the FBI and the Justice Department. Republican staff report and the Committee on the Judiciary assembled this, and you can see it was drafted on November 4th, 2022. Over 1,000 pages. I want to show you the table of contents before we hit the bullet points. The table of contents detail for us all 59 of the major pages, in addition to all of the appendices that are attached. But let's break this up here by the main sections. The first section is about FBI leadership abusing its law enforcement authorities. Now, underneath this, right, we've got domestic violent extremism statistics, pressuring and reclassifying, manipulating its case filing system, and so on. We've got sections B, C, D, E, F, and then a whole second section under section 2. So there's a lot here. But before we go through the executive summary, take a look at this warning. On the 5th page of the FBI report, they know that a lot of FBI agents and people at the DOJ are going to be reading this, and they're going to be investigating all of these allegations. And so they put here on page 5, attention, all Justice Department and FBI employees, you have a right to speak with Congress. If your bosses, Christopher Wray and Merrick Garland, are trying to shut you up, guess what? Don't let them. Every employee of the DOJ and the FBI has an unfettered right to communicate with Congress without the approval, consent, or awareness of the department or the FBI. Federal law protects these disclosures. So if you're listening there, from the rooms of the DOJ or the FBI, you can contact your congressperson, in particular, Jim Jordan. Whistleblowers are an invaluable source for Congress in identifying, understanding, and remedying waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement. And if you have anything you'd like to share, you can call them at this number, 202-225-6906. Call your local congressperson today and report on the FBI garbage. Now, let's go through the executive summary and hit the highlights on exactly what this 1,000-page document contains so that we don't have to go through all 1,000 pages. We see here, the report writes, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, so-called, under the stewardship of Director for Christopher Wray and Merrick Garland, is broken. The problem lies not with the majority of the frontline agents who serve our country, but with the FBI's politicized bureaucracy. The problem lies, for example, with the FBI hierarchy that spied on President Trump's campaign and ridiculed conservative Americans. The problem lies with the FBI bureaucrats who altered and mischaracterized evidence to federal courts, circumvented safeguards, and exploited weaknesses in policies governing institutions and informants. They did this to target politically disfavored subjects and protect the favored ones. We covered all of this when we talked about Sussman, when we talked about Igor Danchenko, Jim Baker, all of them. The problem lies with the FBI structure that centralizes high-profile cases in D.C. in the hands of politicized actors with politicized incentives. Quite simply, the problem, the rot within the FBI, festers in and proceeds from Washington. Quite simply, the problem, the rot within the FBI, festers in and proceeds from Washington. Yeah, the rot. Right out of there. Over the last year, a multitude of whistleblowers have approached the Judiciary Committee Republicans with allegations of political bias by the FBI senior leadership and misuses of their federal law enforcement powers, most of which we've chronicled here. These whistleblowers have risked their careers out of fidelity to principle and commitment to restoring public trust in the FBI. Shout out to our FBI whistleblowers. This report begins to tell their stories. Even at this early stage, one startling conclusion is clear. The FBI and its parent agency, the Justice Department, have become political institutions. This report details the problems, as recounted in whistleblower disclosures and other forms that undermine the FBI's fundamental law enforcement mission. Whistleblowers describe the FBI's Washington's hierarchy as, quote, rotted to its core, maintaining a, quote, system culture of unaccountability, and full of, quote, rampant corruption, manipulation, and abuse. Nice agency, federal agency. Whistleblowers describe how the FBI has abused its law enforcement authorities for political purposes and how the FBI leadership show a political bias against conservatives. For example, the FBI is artificially inflating statistics about domestic violent extremism all across the nation. Is that a surprise to anybody? No, it shouldn't be. We've already talked about Timothy Thibault. We've talked about Jill Sanborn and others at the FBI and the DOJ who have pivoted, making this their entire focus. It's their entire existence. Whistleblowers have described how FBI leadership is pressuring line agents to reclassify cases as domestic violent extremism, even if the matter does not meet the criteria. They also explain how the FBI is misrepresenting the scale of domestic violent extremism nationwide by categorizing J6-related investigations as organic cases stemming from local field offices instead of all related to one single incident. You like that? So what this means is, rather than saying that they're investigating a bunch of a bunch of cases related to one incident, and centralizing it all out of a Washington field office, for example, they're saying that all of the various agencies can go and investigate all of the different people in those local states. So all of the different sort of subdivisions of the FBI, the state agencies, state FBI offices can go investigate the people locally and open those up as new investigations. This is an insurrection investigating originating out of Arizona. Well, is it really? Yeah, it is, because the insurrectionist Rob Govea lives in Arizona. So therefore, it's an insurrection investigation that started in Arizona. And that means that there's an insurrection, homegrown domestic violent extremist in Arizona, right? Well, what if, and I wasn't there, I was live streaming here with you, but what if on January 6th, I was in Washington, D.C.? Had I been there, right, you would argue that the nexus of that case, the origination point, would have been there in D.C. And so if they classified this as an insurrection case, it would be in D.C. It would be part of the D.C. insurrection cases, part of the single incident. And it's not, and that would centralize it rather than making it this distributed event that happened all over the country, right? And now they can say, well, Arizona's got a lot of violent extremists, and everywhere you turn, every time a person who's arrested related to J6, there's violent extremism happening in that state. So they're just manipulating the numbers. In both ways, the FBI is fueling the Biden administration's narrative that domestic violent extremism is the biggest threat to our nation. Obviously a ridiculous thing, but that is all they have to run on, and it enables them to take out their political opponents. So it's a good one to run on. The FBI is abusing its counterterrorism authorities to investigate parents who spoke at school board meetings. When the whistleblowers came and talked to Congress, shortly after, the School Board Association urged President Biden to use the Patriot Act against school parents. The FBI Counterterrorism Division set up a special threat tag to track school board related cases. Whistleblowers provided evidence of how the FBI opened investigations into one mom for allegedly telling a local school board, "We're coming for you," and a dad simply because he, quote, rails against the government and, quote, has a lot of guns. How many dads does that describe out there? The FBI has abused, they say, another whistleblower has reported, that they've abused its foreign intelligence authorities to spy on American citizens, including people associated with Trump. Facts have been documented in IG reports from the Inspector General and FISA court opinions. There's little indication that the FBI has changed or that it's willing to change. The FBI, they say, is also clearing the Bureau of employees who dissent from its woke leftist agenda. The report says the FBI is actively seeking to, quote, purge FBI employees holding conservative views, or in President Biden's view, those that are, quote, a threat to American democracy. Because they hold conservative views, the FBI has even taken retaliatory actions against at least one whistleblower who has spoken out. The whistleblowers continue. They say that they've explained how the FBI is politically meddling, how it's dragging the criminal side of the Bureau down and resources are being pulled away from real law enforcement duties. One whistleblower described how he was told that child abuse material, yikes, were no longer an FBI priority. Oof, whoa. He was told that CSAM, okay, investigations were no longer an FBI priority and should be referred to local law enforcement agencies. They've got bigger fish to fry, like insurrectionists. So that he could work a Washington-directed, politically charged case instead. Isn't that interesting? Way worse to be a Republican. Such a misprioritization is not only a dereliction of duty, but it's a grave disservice to the victims of crimes that do not advance the FBI's agenda. The examples, they say, outlined in this report concern FBI abuses and misconduct primarily, due to the experience of whistleblowers and the conduct to which they were exposed. But because the FBI is a compartment of the DOJ, it's virtually impossible to examine the FBI's actions without also examining the DOJ. For example, in creating a threat tag to track investigations into parents, the FBI was executing a directive from Merrick Garland and the department. In addition, the recent examples of misconduct must be examined in the context of years of serious abuses from the FBI. And so for context and explanation, we'll discuss some of that here. we get a beautiful history lesson. They tell us, the FBI has a troubling history of using its authorities to advance political goals. Under J. Edgar Hoover, the Bureau surveilled Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., engaging in an intense campaign to discredit him. After 9/11, terrorist attacks occurred. Then Robert Mueller, FBI director at the time, sought to change the FBI's culture to produce a centralized, intelligence-driven organization. With its new structure, the FBI leadership began running investigations out of headquarters rather than out of field offices, something that had been the routine for nearly a century. Mueller started the trend of filling leadership positions with Washington bureaucrats who lacked the institutional knowledge of career agents. And from information provided by these whistleblowers, all these problems continue to this day. The DOJ is a disaster. They turn it over to Director Wray at the FBI. He begins after James Comey's disastrous tenure, wrecking the FBI there, when the Washington Bureau's leadership used the power of federal law enforcement to attack Trump and his campaign. Wray had an opportunity to clean up the agency, but he didn't. They say, by any measure, Wray has failed. The House says that Americans deserve to have confidence in the enormous power of the federal law enforcement. FBI has power quite literally to ruin a person's life, and they do regularly, to invade their residence, to take their property, and to deprive them of their liberty. The potential abuse of this power, or even the appearance of abuse, erodes the fundamental principle of equality under the law and confidence in order. The FBI's tremendous power is precisely why the people's elected representatives in Congress must conduct vigorous oversight, especially in light of these allegations, and this transcends all politics. This report presents so far what's known. There is likely much more to be uncovered in the months to come, but it's clear that the FBI needs repair. Too many whistleblowers have said that they're saddened by what they see happening. Too much is at stake to just sacrifice this all. The necessary first step in fixing the program of broken culture is to identify and understand the problem, and this report begins to do that. And so as we saw, there's a lot to this. We're not going to read through it all, but Section 1, FBI leadership, right? I mean, this goes on. Just here, I'll just give you the quick scroll down. Now, when we get past page 59, you see we have got all sorts of letters attached here. These are prior letters that I think we've covered many times previously. That they've sent month after month after month. Okay, so this one, June 14th, right? It's 1,000 pages of all the letters, essentially. All the different attempts that they've tried to send to get answers from the FBI. And you can see it's just shocking how much. This is what Congress sends over to the FBI and the DOJ. We're still going. I mean, we're on page 175, 77, 78, 79. Can you please let us know what you jerks are doing over there at the DOJ? Can you please tell us what the FBI does investigating parents? Letter. Look at all these. Andy Biggs, Tom McClintock, Tiffany, Chip Roy, Victoria Spartz, on and on and on. No answers. Nobody responds. We know that they just call and call and call, write and write and write. It's just like a big joke. So what's the point? What is the oversight? What is the point of the oversight committee? All they do is just draft letters. 1,000 pages, no answers. Here we go. Just keep going. I mean, we could do a whole stream for 3 hours on this. Just scrolling. All right, you get the point. I mean, it's ridiculous. But that is what's going on. 1,000 pages of FBI and DOJ corruption on display. FBI, DOJ just not even responding. They've got bigger fish to fry, like insurrectionists. Chuck Grassley in Iowa joined the campaign trail with Donald Trump, seeking re-election, says that if he's back in charge and the Republicans win the Senate, they are coming hard at the FBI and the DOJ. Grassley has been trying for a long time to get answers from the FBI. We've listened to him with Christopher Wray in front of the Senate. Christopher Wray told him, hey, old man, are you done here? I have to leave now. I have to get on an airplane. And he left him. Totally disrespectful. And they don't respond to any letters that were sent previously. Now, Chuck Grassley, from the podium there in Iowa, is responding. Grassley says, if Republicans win, we're in charge now, and there are going to be serious repercussions for you, DOJ.
I've got several things to say today, but one thing that I want to start out with, so you can have confidence in me if I'm reelected, I'm not going to give up on trying to get political bias out of the FBI.
Get it out of there.
And I'm not going to give up on my investigation of Hunter Biden and other Bidens.
A lot of questions about those.
Because we follow the facts and we follow the money where it leads us. And there's plenty of money to follow if you've been following it.
Chuck Grassley running for Senate, and hopefully he gets reelected so the Republicans hang on to that seat and he can deliver on his promises and continue the investigations that should have been completed a long time ago if we had any active journalism or functional FBI or DOJ in this country. Unfortunately, we do not. Ted Cruz is also supporting the cause. He is not up for a close reelection, but he is on with Fox News. And you take a look at what Senator Ron Johnson was talking about here. They're hitting this Hudson West 3 bank account of Hunter Biden. You can see all of the connections between all of the different companies. We've talked about many of these before. And they're saying that when they get back in charge, they are going to be investigating them. Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, says if the Republicans win, and he thinks they will, there's going to be repercussions for the Democrats. All sorts of investigations into Hunter Biden. The FBI, the DOJ are on notice that there will be more questions that they, this time, will have to answer.
And now under Joe Biden, they are out in the open. And under Joe Biden, this is the most political and the most corrupt Department of Justice we've ever seen. We see the FBI storming President Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. That's never happened in the history of our nation. We see FBI agents storming pro-life activists, machine guns drawn at the crack of dawn with their children crying. And I got to say, Merrick Garland has done more to undermine and damage the integrity of the Department of Justice than any attorney general in history. And that includes John Mitchell, Nixon's attorney general, who resigned, was prosecuted, and went to prison. Merrick Garland is doing even more damage
to the entire country, and I think he's right about that. We have seen under Merrick Garland all sorts of precedent broken. He feigns a separation while he raids Trump's house. We see him indulging and prosecuting all of the J6 cases that are referred over from an illegally constituted committee. He says to America that he's a law and order guy. Meanwhile, he's breaking all of the precedents that have existed for some time in this country, and they existed for good reason. You don't just trample over those things. Otherwise, you have some damage that you cause to the country. But evidently, they don't care. They think that all of this is necessary in order to keep Trump on the sidelines. We'll see if that works out for him. I'm not so sure that it will. But that, my friends, is the update on the story. 1,000 pages of corruption, all detailed by the House GOP. And of course, the full report is available at the GOP website, the House GOP Judiciary website. So you can look that up there. But that is the corruption we'll continue to cover it. Thank you for joining us, liking this video, and subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. All right, my friends, and we've got one final segment left on the day, and we're talking a little Paul Pelosi action. Before we jump into your questions, I saw some super chats come in. Should we take a parchment break before we jump into this? Just a quick parchment so that we can stay hydrated so that our mouths don't turn into parchment. Cheers, my friends. Cheers to Toy Mafia, to Just Cause, to Marcia Jones, to Leslie Sylvan, to John McGarvey, to Texas Ditch Doctor over there on the Locals House. We've got Little Galaxies, Ubuk, Tricky, No Name Guy over on the Rumbles chat. And now we've got some Paul Pelosi action, baby. That's right. Omnigma is in the chat. It says, oh, Paul Pelosi action. Oh, gosh, what did he say there? Uh-oh, that could be problematic. Well, we're about to get into it, and so let's do that right now, shall we? A new report from NBC was deleted. Very interestingly, it had some new details for us on the Paul Pelosi saga. We had talked previously about this. He was allegedly attacked in his home by an individual named David DePapi, and evidently he's doing okay. He was attacked with a hammer, had his skull fractured. A lot of questions about that. I certainly don't want anybody attacked in their home with a hammer. Don't want anybody hurt or injured anywhere if I can avoid it. And we considered all of that, waited for the story to percolate and bubble up a little bit more, and now there's more questions about it, especially when NBC reports new information and then suddenly deletes it. I want to show you this video, but before we do, here is the backstory on what actually happened, because it's not that interesting if they leave it up. It's more interesting if they delete it and then they sort of put up a different version. Let's take a look at what's going on here. NBC deletes a report on the Pelosi attack from its website. They say they did it because of reporting standards. Suddenly those matter, and they need to exercise them to keep their content clean. NBC deleted the story about Paul Pelosi from the Today Show webpage because it fell below their ethical and standard thresholds. It was about David DePape breaking in. The video was deleted and the story was appended. Here's what the story said. Paul Pelosi was released from the hospital 6 days after the intruder attack. Paul Pelosi was released with a fractured skull. Editor's note: the piece should not have aired because it did not meet NBC News reporting standards. Oh, that's weird. The report featured several asides that appeared to call unnecessarily into question certain aspects of the incident, some of it coming from ambiguous sources. A source with knowledge of the story told Mediaite that the segment was removed because the main source was unreliable, they said. They couldn't see how far away the attacker was from the door. All right, so that's what the source is. And they decided to change it. And it sounds like a perfectly good reason, doesn't it? Well, let's watch the video and we can see for ourselves. NBC News deleted this video. It has new details on the Paul Pelosi alleged attack. People are asking, what was problematic about this? Why did it have to come off the air?
Good morning. When officers arrived here at the Pelosi home exactly a week ago today, they initially didn't have any idea exactly what was going on. They knew they had a high priority call on their hand. What was unclear, what was happening inside the property just behind me.
This morning, Paul Pelosi is home, back at the house that became a crime scene a week ago today. NBC News learning new details about the moments police arrived.
New details.
Sources familiar with what unfolded in the Pelosi residence now revealing when officers responded to the high priority call, they were seemingly unaware they'd been called to the home of the Speaker of the House.
Well, that's a little interesting. So you have Capitol Police who are evidently monitoring the property, who apparently weren't actually monitoring the property. We'll get there in a minute. But the people at the police department in San Francisco also don't know they're going to the Speaker's house, and they don't know that it's an emergency. So when Paul Pelosi calls, evidently it's not kind of an emergency call, right? It's a wellness check. They know it's a high priority call. We've got all sorts of conflicting information here. This is weird.
After a knock and announce, the front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. The 82-year-old did not immediately declare an emergency or try to leave his home.
Weird. Why would you do that? We heard the story that this individual allegedly broke into the window and was standing over Paul Pelosi when he was laying there in bed and said, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy? I'm looking for podiums. I'm insurrecting you now, son." And there was no rhyme or reason to any of it. And so Paul Pelosi calls, it's sort of a wellness check, something strange happened, the cops show up, he goes to the door, opens the door, and apparently walks back inside. Let's rewind that a minute.
House. After a knock and announce, the front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. The 82-year-old did not immediately declare an emergency or try to leave his home.
Wouldn't you do that? If the police are there and there's a home invader with a hammer, evidently, you open the door, you go out to the police. Holy moly, thank you, officers. I cannot believe you're here. Thank you for saving me. He says, no, everything's good. Come on in.
But instead began walking several feet back into the foyer toward the assailant and away from police. It's unclear if the 82-year-old was already injured or what his mental state was, say sources.
That's a cope. That's them trying to say, well, yeah, it's weird. It's definitely weird, but maybe he was attacked or maybe he was out of sorts. He was just a little bit delusional. Or maybe he was drunk. Was he drunk? Was he drunk? Was he inebriated on something? Sleeping pills? Was he something going on here? Opens the door. Come on in. We're just getting started.
According to court documents, when the officer asked what was going on, defendant smiled and said everything's good.
When the officer asked what was going on, defendant smiled, everything's good. That's from David DePapi. Everything's good.
But instantaneously, a struggle ensued as police clearly saw David DePape strike Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. After tackling the suspect, officers rushed to Mr. Pelosi, who was lying in a pool of blood.
You saw that we read through the entire special agent report, but they say here, the officer asked again, what is going on here? You know, what the heck is going on here? What is going on here? Depends how you conjugate that. What is going on here? Because he's got a hammer in his head. You know, the hammers are all they're intertwined in this hammer grip. Or it could be, what is going on here? Oh my gosh, what is going on here? What's going on here? It could be, there's a spectrum of what it could possibly be. We don't really know. But evidently, Pelosi opened the door and he invited him on in.
Rushed to Mr. Pelosi, who was lying in a pool of blood.
What we do know is he brutally attacked Mr. Pelosi and attempted to kill him.
We don't know anything, okay? We really don't know what they were doing there, why they were standing where they were standing, or why he let them in, or how he got in the house, or a lot of questions about all that. But what we do know is he was attacked. You see how they just keep jumping to that? They don't want to talk about any of that other stuff. They just want to talk about the attack. That's it, the hammer attack by a MAGA insurrectionist who wasn't any of those things.
Who was lying in a pool of blood.
What we do know is he brutally attacked Mr. Pelosi and attempted to kill him.
After spending several days in the ICU, Pelosi, who is recovering from a fractured skull and serious injuries to his arm and hand, is now home, where Capitol Police remain on alert. Investigators have previously said Pelosi did not know DePape when the 42-year-old broke into his home. Why Pelosi didn't try to flee or tell responding officers he was in distress is unclear.
Fear takes over. Fear freezes people.
This morning,
he had like 30 minutes. He was walking around. The cops were there, and he could have just walked right outside if he was so panicked.
The 82-year-old lucky to be alive after an intruder nearly killed him in his own home.
Law enforcement officials tell us the bottom line here is this was a terrifying situation. We still don't know exactly what unfolded between Mr. Pelosi and the suspect for the 30 minutes they were alone inside that house before police arrived. Officials who were investigating this matter would not go into further details about these new details. Craig, back to you.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, though. He is lucky to be alive. Miguel Amelgar for us. Miguel, thank you.
Yeah, he's very lucky to be alive. I'm glad he's alive. I'm glad he's doing well. Don't want injury to befall him, of course. But it is very curious. Cops, what's going on here? And he walks right back inside. Very strange. So NBC deleted that story. Apparently that story fell below their ethical standards, or their standards in general. And it seemed like it was pretty well put together. It seems like somebody put a lot of effort into that story, and they weren't just sort of throwing something at the wall to see what sticks. They presumably talked to somebody who seems like they maybe knew something about what actually happened. Now, the Capitol Police apparently aren't even watching. The Paul Pelosi attack has inspired the Capitol Police, hopefully, to do their jobs. The Washington Post is reporting that they weren't even watching the security cameras when the raid, invasion, alleged assault, insurrection 3.0, whatever took place. Washington Post reports that inside the command center at the U.S. Capitol Police, a handful of officers were going through their routines early on Friday morning. They were cycling through live feeds of the department's 1,800 cameras. You know, there's so many of them, they're very busy. At the nearby Capitol complex, on screen showed a darkened street nearly 3,000 miles away outside the house of Nancy Pelosi. An officer in D.C. quickly pulled up additional camera angles from around Pelosi's home and began to backtrack, watching recordings from the minutes before San Francisco police arrived. There on camera was a man with a hammer breaking a glass panel and entering the speaker's home. People familiar with this learned of the break-in, and they were briefed and viewed the video themselves. But the 911 call came in first. They struggled inside the home. Attempted kidnapping, alleged kidnapping, took place. But if the Capitol Police were going to stop an attack at the home of any member of Congress, they had perhaps the best chance to do it at Pelosi's. According to several current and former law enforcement officials, many of whom spoke on condition of anonymity, the Capitol Police installed cameras around Pelosi's home more than 8 years ago. She has an around-the-clock security detail, okay? For many months after the attack, San Francisco police cruisers sat outside of her home day and night after January 6. But hours after Pelosi left San Francisco, much of the security left with her. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they just left. Officers in Washington stopped continuously monitoring the video feeds outside her house. Targeted security and lack of full-time active surveillance, even at the home of a member of Congress, the Speaker of the House, okay? The Speaker of the House. It's not just like some new member of Congress, okay? It's not AOC we're talking about here. It is the Speaker of the House. Their family, security officials, they've tried to get this implemented. Capitol Police have been working to implement more than 100 security improvements outside of different houses. In a statement on Tuesday, that they need more money. They need more security. I mean, it's like amazing. Okay. So, it's weird. It's weird. Like the cameras aren't on when you need them the most, Epstein, something happened with him, cameras were off. Very strange. All of those tens of thousands of hours of footage that we want from January 6th, all it's gone. Where's all that? Gone. Oh yeah. All the footage from all of these San Francisco police officers, all of these, security videos that could easily put all of this to bed. All of it is gone. Very strange. Yeah. Why do we even have cameras for? What's the point? Don't even need them because there's never any footage. Ridiculous. All right. So we now know that they need more money. That's probably the problem. Capitol Police couldn't protect the Capitol or Nancy Pelosi's house because don't have enough money. Probably need a few $1 billion more from the American people. Shouldn't be a problem. We've got plenty. Capitol Police Chief pushes for, quote, more resources after Paul Pelosi's assault. He says, we believe that today's political climate calls for more resources, to provide additional layers of physical security for members of Congress. This guy's name is Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger. He said it in a statement. He says that this plan would include an emphasis on adding additional redundancies to the measures that are already in place for the congressional leadership. He declined to disclose further details about the improvements. He said this could expose ourselves to risks from bad actors. All this, of course, emanates from the David DePape attack. He said, we're developing options from which a request will be made. We're exploring every option, it says Chuck Schumer. And they're going to try to cram through a big fat bill that we're all going to have to pay for. Probably going to create a bunch of additional Capitol Police agencies or departments all across America. Total joke. Now, this also was a very interesting tweet from John Cardillo. He's on Twitter and he says with his red circles that they are lying about everything. He says, this is the camera that you can see on Paul Pelosi's mansion. You see it right there circled in red. You see this one here circled in red. Let me move myself out. Right. And those aren't obviously directly in front of the breaking and entering place, but lots of cameras. I guess most of that only matters if they're being monitored. Otherwise, what good are cameras that don't have anybody actually looking at them? Not that great. But that, my friends, is it for the Paul Pelosi story. Evidently, he walked away from the police. He's being invaded, attacked by a home intruder. Police are there. Come on in. Let's go sit down and have some coffee. All right. Well, that is it for us on the program today, my friends. Those are the segments. We covered some heavy ground. We read through a little bit of that 1,000-page report. We talked about Trump's big announcement, which, of course, is coming very soon. And we wrapped up by talking about Paul Pelosi, who is evidently walking away. But now it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this and more. And so let's check in with the chat and queue up some of these comments to see what everybody has to say about this, because it's been a week, hasn't it? Paul says, where's the glass inside the house? I thought that was a very good observation. It sort of looked like that window was broken out to me when I saw that. We saw a couple super chats come in. One from Raymond Loera. He says, pause for the cause, a beverage break. Cheers to you, Raymond Loera. Bonnie says, is it plexiglass? We have Zulu is in the house over there. Facts Matters throwing the hammer emojis in. Raymond Loera, thank you for the pause for the cause beverage break. Sometimes I forget to stay hydrated, but it is very important. We have to stay hydrated, lest our mouths turn into parchment. But I think that is about it for us, my friends. Vienticus says, I also think it is a good time for a lovely beverage. Cheers to you, Vienticus. We have 1958 says, Kash has said that the documents were declassified. I hope he sticks with it. I think that he probably will. I think he's a pretty loyal guy. Real Life says, I think that Paul Pelosi owes the guy money. Could possibly be that. I'm not real sure. Just Cause is in the house. We're getting some bro. They're broing it out over there. The Freak says, you don't even know the inning of a ball game or a score at that age. Well, I think that there's a lot of vibrance in our senior years. I mean, we just listened to Chuck Grassley. He kind of delivered a nice little statement there. He's 80 something, right? Did you see the gifted subs before? Oh, I think Facts Matter. I did see that. I forgot to mention that. Shout out, ultra mega shout out to Facts Matter. Facts Matter just donated 10 memberships for the whole community, which is outstanding. Thank you for doing that, Facts Matter. And I had that scrolled up, but I lost my scroll. I lost my scroll. A bunch of people got invited and became members. And so let me see if I can see that and welcome some new members here who just became members. You're going to get those morning walk and talks. You're going to get some awesome new things, including some member-only content. I can't see it. But thank you to Facts Matter and welcome to all of our new members. Facts Matter, that was very generous of you. And you've been here for a long time. I'm very grateful that you have been a member and you're helping support bringing in other members. Very generous of you. And I see some people in the chat saying thank you. Thank you. So yes, thank you to Facts Matter. He says, Facts Matter says, just trying to get Lean back together. Lean. Yeah, Lean's in the house. We've missed Lean. We were talking about Lean earlier on the week. Where is Lean? It feels empty around here, man. We need Lean in here. But Lean's back. Henry Dixon's in the house. Says, great show. Keep up the fighting. Keep up fighting the Matrix. And shout out to Henry Dixon. Hope you're doing well, my friend. It's been a while. Lean's back in the house. Jenny B says, I'm out of here. Too upset with what they're doing to Ye. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Ye, that's a whole separate saga. We've never even talked about the Ye stuff. Vientica says, Rob, you need to get a My Pillow code so you can muscle out Poso. I don't think that's not possible. Poso is a master code My Pillow smith. He's a master codesmith. I'm trying to be like him, if I can be honest. I gotta work in my ads a little bit more Poso-like, because he's good at it. He's really good at it. But no My Pillow stuff over here currently. We've got gold, baby. We've got gold and survival food, which is where you should go because we all need those things. Gold and survival food, baby. And thank you for being so cool about allowing me to introduce some sponsors here. It's going to be a big deal for the show. It's going to allow us to do, I think, some really cool stuff. And I want to thank the Rumble crew for helping facilitate all of that. Alex over there at Rumble was very cool. They are actually building some neat stuff over there. I've said for a long time, YouTube has kind of a stranglehold on the content creation game for two reasons. One is eyeballs and the other is monetization. They have the views and they've got a really nice, robust ad program that allows content creators to make money. Rumble is building a competing platform and they are doing it in a very interesting way. They're saying, how about we can help the content creators build in sort of a monetization platform while using the YouTube platform for the distribution. So do you see what I'm saying here? Monetization through Rumble, which helps build that ecosystem, which is giant, and distribution through YouTube. It's a very, very interesting model, and I think it's going to be very powerful for a lot of creators. Now, yes, and I know there are ads in the show now, and that's not really something that a lot of people like, but I appreciate you supporting our sponsors because they do support our side of the aisle with their sponsorships, and it's very, very important. And I will not spam you with ads if you're on Locals. I'm not going to try to promote the ads on Locals. We'll keep that sort of, nice and ad-free, of course. But I appreciate you guys tolerating them. Thank you, Bonnie. Bonnie says, I'll tolerate them just for you. All right. Well, thanks, Bonnie. I appreciate it. All right. And we are going over to Locals for the after party in a minute. If you want to join us, that's over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where the show will continue. We'll have an additional conversation over there. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who was a part of the show. Big shout outs to the mods who mod down the fort for us. Shout outs go to Vientikis, Prime, K-Bean, Just Cause, Lean's in the house, along with Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, Geo swung by, and Henry Dixon was in the house as well. Of course, we also have our sponsors. One more time before you get out of here, head on over to robertlikesgold.com and protect your savings with gold. robertlikesgold.com. Links are in the description. Also, check out forpatriots.com. Survival food. Promo code Robert. 10% off everything on your first order. And thank you, my friends, for supporting our law firm. We also help good people charged with crimes in Scottsdale, Arizona. And our mission is to help them find safety, clarity, and hope, not only in their cases, but beyond that, in their lives. We have free case evaluations at 480-787-0394, online at rrlawaz.com. And I saw a Rumble rant before we get out of here from Texas 47, says, best attack we could have, from TX47 on Rumble. And I think TX47, I'm not sure what kind of attack that is. Probably the Paul Pelosi attack. I mean, we've been sort of joking about that. Like, if there was going to be an October surprise, if you were going to like craft a narrative for some sort of an attack, that's a pretty good one. Like a hammer to the skull, insurrection, where's Nancy? It's perfect. You can't script that any better. But thank you for that. We had another one from STFU FFS. Says pre-election indictment. The red tsunami would be huge. Yeah, if they did indict him like now, they're not going to do that now. I mean, it's too close to the election. It would be definitely juicy. It would certainly be an October surprise, no doubt about that. But I'm not so sure that would happen because it's too close. After the election, certainly. Brace yourself. I think that we're going to see a ton of activity. Trump's going to get indicted, and it's just going to be a mess. But that's all they've got. They have nothing to run on, so they have to leave it there. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Thank you for joining us this week. We are going to be around this weekend. Okay, so on Sunday, I'm going over to Legal Mindset. We're hanging out on his channel, and we might do something maybe before that so we can redirect over there or something. But on Sunday night, that's going to be happening, so we'll be around. We'll probably have a long stream on Monday because it's election night. I think we're meeting with Garrett Ziegler on Monday night, which should be a ton of fun. And he has a massive Hunter Biden report that's available now. I've seen it, and it's just incredible. So we'll talk all about that. We've got a lot of activity to get to. So I hope you are joining us. Definitely be sure to subscribe over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're heading there right now. I hope to see you this weekend, but if I don't, I hope to see you here on Monday to do this all again. And together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, a tremendous weekend, my friends. I'll see you right back here on the next one. Bye-bye.